So I was watching an interview with Chris Nolan the other day about the directing process of The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is, in my opinion, the best film of all time. Now, you're all probably thinking that this is going to be another love letter to The Dark Knight, and it's not. Mainly because that's been done to fucking death at this point. Instead, I'm going to be giving the reasons why I personally think that Batman is the best superhero that there is. Most superheroes, particularly those in the MCU, have the motivation, we're good and he's bad, so let's stop him from being bad. And honestly, I find this to be just so boring for a hero. The one MCU hero who is an exception to this rule is Tony Stark's Iron Man. In the first Iron Man movie, Tony Stark is shown to be a reckless and careless billionaire who doesn't treat anyone with respect. Even when he is confronted by a female journalist about his immoral ways of making money, he doesn't seem to care too much about what he's saying and is more interested in her features. The reason Tony Stark becomes a hero is when he is attacked and subsequently abducted by terrorists. Here is where he can see the true cost of his lavish living, as he sees the death and destruction that his manufacturing of weapons has caused. This is nearly identical to Batman's origin story. Okay, so fair enough, Batman wasn't abducted by terrorists and forced to build a nuclear warhead in a cave. But he did witness things that would change his outlook on life and humanity as a whole. But unlike Tony Stark, this wasn't just one event, but it was 3 different ones. Now, the first is the most obvious one, is when he witnesses parents getting murdered in the back alley behind a theatre. Now, obviously this traumatised Bruce and left him permanently angry and aggressive and sad. However, the second time is arguably even more influential than the death of his parents, and it's when Joe Chill is revealed to be the man who killed his parents. Bruce goes to the courthouse where Joe Chill is being tried, and he goes there with the intention of killing Joe Chill. And the only reason he doesn't do it is because he's already killed by somebody else before Bruce had the chance. On the way back from the courthouse, he reveals to his girlfriend Rachel what his true motivations for going to that court hearing were. And upon Rachel hearing this news, she says one of the most important lines in any Batman story.
Your father would be ashamed of you.
Your father would be ashamed. Now this is very powerful to Bruce, as he realises in that moment, in trying to avenge his parents, he was willing to betray them and their philosophies. He was willing to let the last thing that remained of them die. And now the third and final real impact on Bruce Wayne comes when he goes to confront Falcone, a crime boss who was running Gotham's underbelly for the last few years. He goes to confront Falcone about why he had Joe Chill killed, where Falcone gives him a monologue that would change Bruce's life forever.
People from your world have so much to lose. Now you think, because your mommy and your daddy got shot, you know about the ugly side of life, but you don't. You've never tasted desperate. You're Bruce Wayne, the Prince of Gotham. You'd have to go 1,000 miles to meet someone who didn't know your name. So don't come down here with your anger, trying to prove something to yourself. This is a world you never understand, and you always fear what you don't understand.
This monologue really hits home to Bruce, as he realises in that moment that he can't truly understand the criminal mind unless he becomes one, unless he puts himself into their shoes. And the best way to fight against someone is to understand them. So after this, Bruce goes out for 7 years and becomes a criminal, and finds out that criminals don't just commit crime because they're selfish and they lack empathy for other people, but because sometimes they have to. They have no other alternative. They need to make ends meet, but they have no way of making any other money. For most criminals, it's a case of survival that pushes them to a life of crime. So obviously during this time period he meets Henry Deckard, who trains him up and becomes a member of the League of Shadows, which is a vigilante group that go around and serve justice to those who deserve it. And Bruce is on his very final test to become a member of the League of Shadows, and this test is to kill somebody who has been found guilty of murder. Now, Bruce knows about murder all too well, considering the fact that his parents were murdered. So in this man, he sees Joe Chill. He sees the man who killed his parents. He knows how the family of those lost would feel.
Your compassion is a weakness your enemies will not share.
That's why it's so important.
He shows compassion. He realises the way to stop crime isn't to murder every criminal, but to get them on a new path and inspire good in people, so that all these other people can follow in his footsteps and fight against crime to make a better world for other people. This is what the superhero was invented for. The second reason that I think Batman is such a compelling hero is because he is flawed. He is more flawed than he is powerful. Take Superman, for example. Now, Superman is the ideal superhero. He is super fast, super strong, he can fly, he's got laser eyes, yet despite all of that, he is one of the worst superheroes there is, because of the fact that he is essentially unbeatable. From a story perspective, how can you really get invested into something when you know the hero cannot die? This is why Batman is so intriguing, because of the fact that he is just a man fighting against other people who are willing to kill him in order to get away. He's putting his life at risk in the pursuit of justice. That is why he is so special. That is why he is such a great hero. Now, aside from all of the other flaws that make him less of a superhero in some people's eyes, there is one other thing that is his greatest weakness: his rule that he will never kill a criminal. Now, this rule, as I explained, is actually his best feature. His greatest weakness is his greatest strength. The reason that the no-kill rule is such a weakness is because he cannot fully get rid of the threat of the enemy, of the antagonist, if they're not dead. Yeah, sure, they could be put in prison, but as we've seen before, you can escape prison. You cannot escape when you're dead. This means that essentially every time Batman wins in his stories, he could still possibly lose in the future, as Bane or the Joker or the Riddler can escape and cause more death and destruction. The final reason that I think Batman is the best superhero is more to do with the story element, and that is scale. Most superhero or action movies you see are about saving the world from an alien invasion, or a killer AI, or a giant pink/purple man taking some multicoloured rocks. But all good Batman stories have the same stakes and scale: save and protect Gotham. Gotham in a Batman story almost acts as a character in itself, the way that the villains talk about it and its people, and how Bruce Wayne talks about it.
You're gonna destroy millions of lives.
Only a cynical man would call what these people have lives, Wayne. Crime, despair. This is not how man was supposed to live.
He was trying to kill millions of innocent people.
Innocent is a strong word to throw around Gotham, Bruce.
This lower scale also makes the story more grounded in reality, and as a result, the viewer is more invested in the story. If you went to the cinema and you were watching a Batman film and you found out his objective was to stop someone from blowing up the planet, immediately you realise, oh, I've seen this story 1,000 times before, why should I care? And it's also very unbelievable because, again, Batman has no superpowers. He can't fly across from America to China and save somebody in a blink of an eye. He has to plan, he has to equip, he has to gear up, and he has to fight with all his might in order to save people. So it doesn't make any sense for the whole stake of the story to be save the planet, because for one man to do that is just impossible. That is why I think Batman is such a good hero. It's because he's never trying to save the world. He's just trying to inspire good and reduce crime in a city that he was born and raised in. I know a lot of people will probably take issue with the fact that I believe Batman is the best superhero because he doesn't actually have superpowers. But in my eyes, you don't have to have powers to be a hero. In fact, it's more heroic for you to not have powers and still fight the good fight, to still fight for what is right and what you believe in. This is why Batman is such a good hero to me, because of all of the reasons I've explained. Because he is motivated by previous trauma and learning from experience, because he is flawed and weak and not able to keep up with almost of all of the villains that he comes up against, and because of the fact that he isn't trying to save the world, he's just trying to be a role model to people in Gotham.